Recombinants, Eywa, 2 Sigourney Weavers. The Avatar movies are packed with details that'll play a huge part in Avatar Fire and Ash. Here's everything you need to remember about the story before Pandora goes up in flames. Why is everyone so interested in Pandora in the first place? Well, in 2154, things aren't going so hot on Earth. In fact, the Blade Runner ethos hit hard. Overpopulation, resource scarcity, and abundance of neon? You name it, we got it. And the people are, well, about the same as they've always been. So an organization called the Resources Development Administration, or RDA, looked to the stars for resources and found a treasure trove on a little moon orbiting a gas giant in the Alpha Centauri system 4.3 light-years away. Pandora, lush, beautiful, and loaded with Unobtanium, a rare magnetic superconductor that makes mountains float and lines the pockets of venture capitalists. Excited about this brand new world to exploit, the RDA invested trillions to establish a base on Pandora and commence strip mining operations to bring those rocks back home. The only problem is, the locals aren't thrilled about these strange sky people ripping up their planet. It's a tale as old as time. Big blue humanoids who ride flying space lizards trying desperately to reclaim the sanctity of their home from high-tech invaders. The Na'vi are tapped into the web of life that flows through the animals and plants and elements of Pandora. They can sing with all the voices of the mountain and paint with all the colors of, well, you know the rest. Everything's connected. It's basically the plot of The Lion King. Eywa, the spirit of the planet, is a part of them in all facets of life. Abaco gouging the surface of Pandora might as well be digging into their own spiritual skin. So when the RDA started fern gullying their home, the Na'vi started fighting back. In response to Na'vi incursions, the RDA beefed up their own security over the years. The head of their security team is a tough-as-nails colonel named Miles Quaritch, who figures the only good Na'vi is a dead Na'vi. That's the basic world Avatar plunges us into, a greedy corporation locked in conflict with the native population and a planet in need of a hero. Jake Sully's been feeling blue for a while. A former soldier who became paralyzed from the waist down, he's been drifting aimlessly through life until he finds out that his identical twin brother died, and he just so happens to be a perfect DNA match to continue his brother's work. That work is, of course, being an avatar on Pandora. Like any megalithic company, RDA has different departments that sometimes see different paths to their goals. Dr. Grace Augustine heads up the Avatar program, a scientific outfit that's been trying to find common ground with the Na'vi by approaching them on their own terms, as big blue humanoids.
You're supposed to be winning the hearts and the minds of the natives. Isn't that the whole point of your little puppet show?
They have the technology to temporarily transfer consciousness to lab-grown versions of the Na'vi that can breathe Pandora's toxic atmosphere. And Grace and her team have been making inroads with a local Na'vi clan called the Unobtanium, but progress is slow and the entire program is hanging by a thread. As Quaritch and the investors have figured out, bullets are quicker than diplomacy. Jake doesn't really fit anywhere in this dynamic. He's not much used to Quaritch and his condition, and he's just a dumb grunt, which pisses Grace off when he's dumped in her lap.
I know who you are, and I don't need you. I need your brother. You know, the PhD who trained for 3 years for this mission.
But he doesn't care because the whole thing comes with a perk, legs, and it's not long before he really gets to use them. Since she's forced to keep him anyway, Grace brings him along as a security detail the next time they head out into the wilderness. But the mission is cut short when they run into one of these things, a Thanator.
What about this one? Run, don't run, what?
Run! Definitely run!
Jake gets separated from them in the chase and finds himself alone on a hostile world as night falls, fending off alien coyotes. Just when he's about to be overwhelmed, he's saved by an arrow-slinging Na'vi princess. And as those arrows rain down on the Viper Wolves, his heart is pierced by a different type of arrow, an arrow straight from Cupid. Jake and the Kiri don't hit it off right away. She actually hates him. He represents the destructive powers that have descended from space to ravage her world. So, you know, it's not exactly a meet cute happening here. But Eywa seems to like him. So she takes him back to her village and gets tasked with teaching him the ways of the Unobtanium. The hope is that he can convince the humans to leave. Under Neytiri's tutelage, Jake discovers a world beyond his wildest dreams. His new body is fast, strong, and limber, and as he tunes into the Na'vi mentality, he realizes he's capable of more than ever before. And more importantly, he realizes that the Na'vi aren't the enemies he's been taught they were. But even as they're working their way through the plot of The Fox and the Hound, trouble is brewing back at Hell's Gate. The Unobtanium's home tree, their village and sacred ancestral home, is sitting right on top of a massive Unobtanium deposit, and the RDA is pretty keen on unobtaining it.
Look at all that cheddar.
When Jake's loyalties are finally tested, there's no question for him. He's been accepted by the Unobtanium, and he's head over heels for Neytiri.
You mated with this woman?
Oh, shit.
When the cavalry starts rolling in to take down the home tree, Jake sabotages their equipment, which puts Quaritch on the warpath for his head. But he also reveals that he's been trying to get the Unobtanium to leave their home peacefully, which puts them on a warpath for his head. It's a rock and a hard place for Jake. And worse, despite his best efforts to convince both sides to come to an agreement, the RDA and Unobtanium clash in a devastatingly one-sided battle that destroys the home tree, kills untold number of Unobtanium, and sends the remnants of the clan on the run.
It's good work, people. First round's on me tonight.
This is the sad part of the story. The Unobtanium have been decimated. Jake's lost his avatar privileges, and he and Grace and their friends have been thrown into a prison cell. Back out in Pandora, Neytiri and everyone else blame him for what happened. Just when all seems lost, Jake and the gang break out and fly to the mountains in a mobile lab where they can jack themselves back into their avatars. Jake knows that he who harnesses the massive flying Toruk will become a Toruk Makto, a mythical figure among the Na'vi who's prophesied to be the one who can unite the clans and bring peace to Pandora. So Jake goes and finds himself a Toruk and fulfills himself some prophecy. What else is he really supposed to do at this point? He returns to the Unobtanium who have gathered at the Tree of Souls and asks them to save Grace, who was shot in the escape. In an elaborate ceremony, the Na'vi call on Eywa to transfer Grace's consciousness permanently into her avatar. It doesn't work, but it's important to remember that this happened for later. Afterwards, Jake gives a rousing speech and inspires the Unobtanium to fight back, and they all go on a Toruk tour around Pandora, recruiting the disparate tribes to band together and bring the fight to the RDA.
When Toruk Makto called them, they came.
With satellite images showing thousands upon thousands of Na'vi amassing, Quaritch assembles the Space Marines for a Zerg rush on the Na'vi's nexus, the Tree of Souls. For the Na'vi, the Tree of Souls is their direct uplink to Eywa, their ancestors, and their generational memories. It's a big deal. Jake gets wind of Quaritch's preemptive attack and goes to head them off with the might of Pandora at his side. There's a big epic battle, a whole bunch of dragons fighting airships, fighting horses, fighting mechs, and it's all pretty awesome. When the tide begins to turn in Quaritch's favor, Pandora itself sends reinforcements.
Eywa's heard you!
Again, pretty cool stuff. After James Cameron smashes his digital action figures together for a few more minutes, the focus narrows back down to the main characters. When Jake brings down the central bomber in the fleet, the one that was supposed to crash into the Tree of Souls, Quaritch makes a last-ditch run for the mobile lab where Jake's body is, only to get shot by Neytiri twice. When the dust settles after the Battle of the Hallelujah Mountains, there are big changes on the horizon. Neytiri finally sees Jake in his weak human form, but she's pretty much like,
I see you now, or as the Na'vi put it, Oel Nati Kameye.
Jake mercy kills a critically wounded Sute and takes on the mantle of leader for the clan. Then he and the rest of the Na'vi send the RDA packing. Jake's lab buddies, Norm and Max, stay because they're cool, while the rest of the humans hit the interstellar highway. Jake then transfers himself permanently to his avatar through the Tree of Souls, and they all live happily ever after, for a while at least. Humans. You can't keep them off your planet forever, no matter how hard you might try. We're not going to make a big thing out of the story in the comics that bridges the gap between Avatar and The Way of Water, but there are a few narrative moments that fill in the less explained cracks. Avatar: The High Ground, based on the script that was originally supposed to be the second Avatar movie, explains that Jake spent the intervening years wary of humans' return and preparing for its inevitability. There's just too much on Pandora for the resource-starved Earth to ignore forever, and return they did. About a decade after being driven away, the year 2168 if you want to get specific, the RDA returned in force. Jake wanted to stop them in their tracks immediately before they had a chance to get another foothold. That leads to Na'vi training in zero-G so that they can take the fight to the high ground, aka outer space. It's not every day you get to see Na'vi in space, and it's a fun adventure that ultimately leads back to the opening of The Way of Water, which kicks off 2 years after the RDA's return. Just because Jake didn't stop the RDA in space doesn't mean he's given up. The Unobtanium have been waging a war of attrition by springing guerrilla attacks on RDA equipment and supply routes, grinding down the Sky People's resources bit by bit. But steel is fairly resistant to death by 1,000 paper cuts, and every attack is more dangerous than the last as the RDA ramps up their security. The RDA has also been working overtime. They've established Bridgehead City, a sprawling headquarters way bigger than Hell's Gate ever was.
We have done more here in a year than in the previous 30 years.
This time, they're after something a whole lot more valuable than Unobtanium, and they're not screwing around. The Way of Water brings in a bunch of new Na'vi characters all at once. Jake and Neytiri's firstborn is Natayam, who's 15 years old when we catch back up with the Sully clan. He's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder, always trying to make his dad proud, but feeling like he can never live up to Jake's expectations.
Cause you're the older brother, you gotta act like it.
He keeps an eye on his younger brother Loak, but can't seem to ever keep him out of trouble. Loak is a year younger, and if anything, has an even bigger chip on his shoulder. He wants his dad to appreciate him as much as he seems to appreciate Metkayinam, so he tends to go out of his way to get Jake's attention, which usually gets him in trouble and puts both him and Metkayinam on the wrong end of dad's discipline. Took is Jake and Neytiri's daughter. She's 7 and doesn't have much motivation beyond liking the fun animals. Kiri's a weird one. She's essentially the daughter of Grace and Eywa. After Grace died, her avatar mysteriously became pregnant, and Jake and Neytiri adopted her when she was born. Then there's Spider, a feral sort of human who has a secret that we're going to reveal in about a minute. Quaritch died in the climax of Avatar, but he's back and bluer than ever. Unlike the avatars of the first movie, he doesn't need to mess with any convoluted pods or uplinks to his Na'vi body. RDA protocol had him make a copy of his memories during his previous tenure on Pandora.
This is all your memories and your personality.
Right.
We're going to send this back to Earth where you're growing in a lab as we speak. We're going to imprint you with it and then...
Hey.
It's apparently a bit of a shock to wake up 10 feet tall, but once that passes, he's ready for action. It's also worth noting that his last memory copy was just a few hours before he set out to destroy the Tree of Souls, so this version of Quaritch doesn't remember dying, although he has an inkling Jake may have had a hand in it. He's what's known as a Recombinant, one of 12 that form the basis of a Na'vi hit squad throughout the movie. They're particularly important to the RDA's goals because the Ikran in the Hallelujah Mountains region in particular can sense when people and their tech are in the area and attack them.
Colonel, we believe your blue team will be perceived as indigenous and will not trigger the immune response.
Above all, though, Quaritch wants Jake's head on a platter, any way he can get it.
Sometimes it's not so great to know who your father was.
You said it, Spider. His secret is that he's Quaritch's biological son. So that's his big thing throughout the movie, which you probably remember. On Quaritch and his team's first mission out on Pandora, wouldn't you know it, they run across Jake's kids and Spider out playing in the mountains. Being the smart guy that he is, Quaritch connects the dots pretty much immediately.
Well, I'll be damned. I figured they sent you back to Earth.
Jake and Neytiri show up to rescue the kids before they can be extracted, but Father of the Year here gets out with Spider and chucks him in a holding cell back at Bridgehead. That's good news for him. If he can establish some sort of bond, he might be able to squeeze Jake's whereabouts out of Spider. But it's bad news for Sully and crew for the exact same reason. If Spider lets something slip, even accidentally, Jake knows that Quaritch will bring the heat right down on top of them. For the sake of his family and the rest of the Unobtanium, there's only one thing he can do: pack up and go learn the way of water. So Jake relinquishes his leadership role in the Unobtanium, and the Sullys load up their Ikran and fly away, hoping to find refuge among the Na'vi of the Eastern Sea. It's sort of a blue version of an American tale. The Water Na'vi, the Metkayinamigos, give them a warm enough welcome, more or less. Although they're worried that Jake's just going to bring all his problems down on them. The kids also get picked on by the Metkayinamigos kids because they don't know the first thing about swimming, but over time, the Sullys manage to integrate with the water people and figure out their ways of doing things. While they're learning the way of water, Quaritch and his crew are busy learning the ropes of their recon bodies by learning to fly with the Ikran. Kiri in particular takes to the sea like a fish, and seems to have a deeper connection with the myriad sea critters than even the Metkayinamigos have ever seen.
Are you some kind of freak?
He asked if you are a freak.
Well, she is, in the sense that she's more in tune with the water and Eywa than those jerks will ever be. In fact, she's always been like that. Ever since she was a child, she's connected with the heartbeat of Eywa. The Way of Water doesn't dive too deeply into the significance of it all, but makes it clear that Kiri is unlike anyone the Na'vi have ever seen, which comes in handy later in the story when she reveals that she can also make sea creatures attack bad guys. The only real hint the movie gives into the source of Kiri's gifts is more of a tease. When she connects with Metkayinamigos' spirit tree, she sees Grace in a vision and asks about her father. The answer she gets is quite unenlightening. This may be a mystery for future installments to unravel. Loak is another newcomer to the coves of Eywa Atlu who forms an unexpected bond. He makes friends with Pocahunting, an exiled Talkin with a damaged flipper who went against the ways of his kind and became a pariah. Talkin are whales, sort of, but they're highly intelligent and form close, lifelong bonds with the Metkayinamigos during their regular migrations. They're also aggressive pacifists with a moral code that forbids any form of killing, even in self-defense. That's why Pocahunting was shunned. When he was just a young whaling, he formed a posse to go after the humans who killed his mom. Even something fairly justifiable like that is forbidden amongst the Talkin, so he spent the rest of his life wandering alone until he met Loak. It's basically the plot of The Upside. Unfortunately for the Talkin, they've become the new Unobtanium. They just so happen to have a special liquid in their brains that makes humans completely stop aging, and that kind of elixir sells for a pretty penny back on Earth.
This little vial here is worth like 80 million. Think fast.
Please don't.
That's the main reason the RDA is back on Pandora, and once again, huge resources have been invested in ravaging a piece of Na'vi culture. Tulkun hunting is a particularly vicious sport. Harpoons loaded with inflatable airbags skewer the tulkuns, which force them up to the surface. With their soft underbelly exposed, Tulkun hunters get a clear shot to hit them with explosives, killing them. Then they make their way inside the Tulkun carcass and extract a single vial of Amrita, the immortality brain juice, and leave the rest of the carcass to rot. It's basically the plot of the Alaskan coastline in the 1800s. All that is to say, they're ruthlessly equipped to bring down a Tulkun, which is something Quaritch uses to his advantage in his hunt for Jake. Speaking of Quaritch, he and his buddies haven't been idle while Jake's family makes a bunch of new friends. When Kiri did that spirit tree connection and talked to her mom, she also had a seizure. Jake called in Max and Norm to check her out, which gave Quaritch a signal to track. Now he knows the Sullys became beach Na'vi, and he and his squad have started combing the reef villages to smoke them out.
Burn the hooches.
Hey, light them up. Light them up!
When he doesn't get any answers from asking nicely, he turns to Mick Scoresby and his Tulkun hunters to harvest one of the Metkayina spirit sisters to leave as bait. The plan works, but not entirely the way he hoped. The Metkayina find the slaughtered Tulkun and convene a war council, but Jake still tries to talk them out of it.
If you fight, then they will destroy you!
In the end, the only thing that'll get Jake motivated is saving his family. That's what the movie's all about. Jake spent the whole story running. Now he realizes that this will never end unless he ends it. When Jake's kids are captured while trying to save Pocahunting from a similar fate, Jake agrees to meet with Quaritch. Negotiations break down when Pocahunting makes his move, and in the ensuing battle, Unobtanium gets shot and killed. Toruks and Kiri are still being held captive, so Jake and Neytiri infiltrate the ship and mount another rescue. It ends in a tense standoff with Quaritch, but he lets Kiri go free rather than let Neytiri kill Spider. It's a bit of a redemption for the guy, but then he throws it all away.
I'm coming for you. When I do, I'll kill your whole family. Then let's get it done.
After all the epic skim-wing battles and whale attacks, it comes down to the end of Lethal Weapon, just two dudes duking it out. It's pretty cathartic, and Jake ultimately leaves Quaritch sinking to the bottom of the sea, dead at last, again. It doesn't quite end with that. They're still trapped in a sinking ship, but Kiri sends some firefly squids to light their way, and they make it out safe and together at last, minus one Unobtanium. Oh yeah, and you know how we just said Quaritch was dead? We lied. Spider, moved by his father's apparent love, dives down to save him. He drags Quaritch safely to dry land, and they share a heartwarming father-son moment.
Come with me.
Quaritch flies off to lick his wounds and wait until the next movie, while Spider returns to the Sullys. Jake knows he's brought pain and heartbreak to the Metkayina, so he tells Tonowari that he and his family are moving on. But then Tonowari's like, nah, you're one of us, friendo, so they stay.
And there it was. We are sea people now.
Jake ends the Way of Water, clarifying he's not running anymore, but it'll take serious conviction to stick with that. The guillotine is still hanging over their necks. Sure, they destroyed a boat, but Bridgehead and the rest of the RDA are still out there. And Quaritch isn't gonna have a change of heart just because someone was nice to him. Their happy ending won't last forever. This isn't Pocahontas. We'll have to wait just a bit longer to find out where Avatar Fire and Ash takes the Sullys, but they clearly won't get to live in peace for long. The film will introduce the Ash clan, fire warriors who team up with Quaritch, so he's definitely coming back with a vengeance. Spider's getting a bit of an Eywa upgrade and no doubt trying to figure out his unconventional relationship with his dad, while Loak's gonna have to grapple with the guilt over his part in getting Unobtanium killed. Kiri's going full Aquaman and hopefully getting some answers about her origin, and as for Jake, it's safe to say that the Torok Makto will ride again. It all looks as epic as anything possibly can be, and you can bet we'll be right there for the next chapter in the Avatar saga when it hits theaters on December 19th. Ready to say,
I see you.